Greetings. I am Brother Sylvester Muhammad, and this is my wife.
Sister Sandra Muhammad.
And we are amongst the many followers of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan in his representation of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, one of his students in the classroom. Today we're going to be continuing our discussion on the miseducation of the Negro. You know, my wife and I have been studying Carter G. Woodson. Carter G. Woodson made his presentation on black history. He started it in 1933. He wrote this book, The Miseducation of the Negro. And in studying him, we can't help but wonder, because the Honorable Elijah Muhammad met Master Fard Muhammad in 1931. And as the minister said, the journey began. But there were people that were flocking to hear from Master Fard Muhammad, and there were lines around the building. He was teaching hundreds at a time, only to send hundreds away and bring another 100 in. So could it have been, just maybe, Dr. Woodson was present? And I'm saying that because the parallel between the miseducation of the Negro and message to the black man and knowledge is the key is such a parallel to where you would think you were hearing him speak today.
It's close.
Because it's just that close. So, the miseducation of a Negro. We're going to be reading from that first. But again, the timeline of the original man started 78 trillion years ago, where God created himself from nothing. And then created him second self, which is the woman. And you know, a lot of people want to call the woman, that's my queen. And the minister said, no, she's not a queen and she's not a goddess. She is God, the second self of God. She's not the woman of man. I married her, but I'm her caretaker. She's the woman of God. And I'm saying that to say this. In the book, the study guide, Who is God? 19. The minister was talking about the 6 Marys. You remember? He was talking about the 6 Marys, and he said, he was identifying all, and he said, all these are prototypes of the black woman that has been in America through slavery. And he said, what is it about women that make them so faithful when it comes to God? And then he asked the question, what is it about men that makes us so fickle? But then he let us off the hook. He said, you want power. You want power. But if you really want real power, then surrender to God.
That's right.
Like she have no problem with surrendering, And God will share some of his power, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding with us, just maybe. So now, we're going into the timeline of the original man in reference to Black History Month, reading from Carter G. Woodson's book, The Miseducation of the Negro. Something you didn't get when he was giving us all this so-called education from Western civilization. Come on, baby.
That's right. Well, first I'd like to say Happy Savior's Day.
Oh, yes.
Savior's Day time.
Thank you, baby. Happy Savior's Day. Happy Savior's Day. And this is part 46 of the timeline of the original man. Part 46.
Okay. All right. First I'd like to say in regards to the reading, remember what I'm reading, this was said back in the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
So just, kind of keep that in mind, because some things I will be saying, you have to know where we are on the timeline when it comes to that.
To be exact, the book was written in 1933. Now, we were being called Negroes back then. Nobody wanted to even be called black. You get in a fight calling a brother black back there.
That's right.
Prior to the 50s. Go on, baby.
Okay, so I'm reading on page 2, The Miseducation of the Negro, and this is by Carter G. Woodson. It says, the thought of the inferiority of the Negro is drilled into him in almost every class he enters, and in almost every book he studies. If he happens to leave school after he masters the fundamentals before he finishes high school or reaches college, he will naturally escape some of this bias and will recover in time to be of service to his people.
Yes.
Okay.
See, you're not being educated in reality.
Deserved.
Even to this day, you're being trained.
That's right. That's right.
Read on, please.
Okay, he says, practically all of the successful Negroes in this country are of the uneducated type, or of that of Negroes who have had no formal education.
Now think, these are black men in the year 1930s who were doing for themselves
That's
because
right.
they didn't have the education, quote unquote, of the white man, so to speak. Go on,
That's
baby.
right, but we had a mind to think.
We had a
You know?
mind to think.
And so we started our own businesses because they wouldn't hire us. So we worked for ourselves. So the uneducated, they're the ones that had money at that time.
Good point, good point.
Okay, it says the large majority of the Negroes who have put on the finishing touches of our best colleges are all but worthless in the development of their people.
Come on, in the development of their people. That's 1933. But what are black people, with all the education that we have today, what are we doing for us as a people?
That's right. If after leaving school they have the opportunity to give out to Negroes what trajectories of the race would like to have, it learns such persons may thereby earn a living at teaching or preaching what they have been taught, but they never become a constructive force in the development of the race.
Never becoming a constructive force in the development of the race. Read on.
The so-called school then becomes a questionable factor in the life of this despised people. As another has well said, to handicap a student by teaching him that his black face is a curse and that his struggle to change his condition is hopeless is the worst sort of lynching.
The worst sort of lynching. He associated that with lynching.
That's right.
I mean, lynching of the being trained into the white man's concepts and ideas of reality. That's a lynching.
That's right.
And again, we got to put it in present tense. That's what we are today. I know it hurts if you're an educated person. You figure you have your degrees, you've been to college. But what are you doing for yourself?
That's right. Allahu Akbar. Okay, it goes on to say on page 5. In the schools of business administration, Negroes are trained exclusively in the psychology and economics of Wall Street and are therefore made to despise the opportunities to run ice wagons, push banana carts, and sell peanuts among their own people.
Now this is what the Jews, that's how they got rich. When the immigrants came over, they took those skills and talents and they lured us into their educational system so they can train us away from it.
That's right.
You know, make us think that having a job with them is better than doing something for yourself.
That's right. You say they made them despise the opportunity to do for self. You know, foreigners who have not studied economics but have studied Negroes.
That's
right. Take up this business and grow rich.
Take up the business and grow rich. In other words, they see you don't want that. I'm coming from over in Europe. I take it.
That's right.
Took it and have grown rich.
That's right.
Mainly the Jews.
Mainly the Jews. In schools of journalism, well, actually, I'm not going to read that part. Okay. When a Negro has finished his education in our schools, then he has been equipped to begin the life of an Americanized or Europeanized white man.
Come on, carbon copy.
Yes. But before he steps from the threshold of his alma mater, he is told by his teachers that he must go back to his own people from whom he has been estranged by a vision of ideals which in his disillusionment he will realize that he cannot attain.
He cannot obtain. In other words, what do you mean by in his, read that again, in his what?
Okay.
In
his disillusionment.
and his disillusionment.
He will realize that he cannot attain it.
And it's talking about the so-called American Negro.
Negroes, that's right.
See, and that's why last week I used this concept to show you the way the white man trains black people
right.
with his education. Is Jesus, I mentioned last week that Jesus sent for the donkey and the colt because he said that he had need for them. But the donkey and the colt is being led by someone that don't have Jesus's education at heart. So they're being led. In other words, this is the white man's educational system. This is the white man's entertainment world.
Yeah.
This is the white man, you think of it. Everything that we chase other than the life-giving teachings of Elijah Muhammad, this is what we are running for, something that we can't catch. He got it out in front of you. It's like the glass ceiling,
yeah.
But you cannot catch it because he didn't design it for you. He just want to keep you dumbed down. Henceforth, he always talking about, oh, you're the first.
Right.
And you're the first. I am first in his world to do something and chasing that carrot after him.
That's right.
But no, being the first is being the Asiatic black man. Huh?
That's the real
maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe. That's the first.
That's
and
right.
he was nowhere around 7, 8 trillion years ago. He wouldn't even have thought. He just been here 6,000. Come on, baby.
Okay.
Ooh,
So it says he goes forth to play his part in life, but he must be both social and bisocial at the same time. While he is a part of the body politic, he is in addition to this a member of a particular race to which he must restrict himself in all matters socially. So pretty much, you know, they make you think when you get their education, you're trained by them, they make you think that you're better than your own people. So when you get their education, you go back amongst your own people, you can't even really relate to them. You know, because you have been Americanized or Europeanized.
Trained.
You have been trained
not
in
educated.
their way. You have been miseducated.
Miseducated of the Negro.
That's right. That's very frustrating when they go back and they can't relate to their own people and they can't even relate to the Caucasian people because they don't want them. And remember now, this is in the 30s. We're going to bring it up to date.
We're going to bring it up to date. Good point, baby.
All right. While serving his country, he must serve within a special group. That's right. While being a good American, he must above all things be a good Negro. And to perform this definite function, he must learn to stay in a Negro's place.
Learn to stay in a Negro's place.
That's right.
Come on.
Okay. It says, facing this undesirable result, the highly educated Negro grows sour. He becomes too pessimistic to be a constructive force and usually develops into a chronic fault finder or a complainant at the bar of public opinion.
Yes, sir.
Often when he sees that the fault lies at the door of the white oppressor whom he is afraid to attack, he turns upon the pioneering Negro who is at work doing the best he can to extricate himself from an uncomfortable predicament. And this effort to imitate, however, these educated people are sincere. Sad. Just in a bad situation because they've been taught incorrectly.
And
miseducated.
Miseducated. In the words of our beloved brother and friend Malcolm X, they've been bamboozled.
That's right.
They've been hoodwinked. And that principle still applies to this day. Come on, baby.
Okay, I'm trying to go down. Okay. It says, I'm skipping actually. These educated people, however, decree any such thing as race consciousness, and in some respects they are right. They do not like to hear such expressions as Negro literature, Negro poetry, African art, or thinking black. And roughly speaking, we must concede that such things do not exist. These things did not figure in the course which they pursued in school. And why should they? Aren't we all Americans?
Aren't we all Americans? 1933. He saw it then and will stay and said, Aren't we all
Still
Americans?
saying it, that's right.
No, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad message to the black man got a whole chapter on, I think it's entitled, We Are Un-American.
Yes.
Come on.
Then whatever is American is as much the heritage of the Negro as of any other group in this country. The highly educated contend, moreover, that when the Negro emphasizes these things, he invites racial discrimination by recognizing such differences in the races. They throw that racial thing at us,
Yes.
you know, but it's them.
It's
okay?
them that are racist against us.
That's right. They thought that the Negro, the thought that the Negro is one thing and the white man another is the stock in trade argument of the Caucasian to justify segregation.
Ah,
Why then should the Negro blame the white man for doing what he himself does? These highly educated Negroes, however, fail to see that it is not the Negro who takes this position. The white man forces him to it, and to extricate himself therefrom, the Negro leader must so deal with the situation as to develop in the segregated group the power with which they can elevate themselves. The differentness of race, moreover, is no evidence of superiority or inferiority. This merely indicates that each race has certain gifts which the other do not possess. It is by the development of these gifts that every race must justify its right to exist. Now this is from Mr. Carter G. Woodson, like my husband said, back in the 1930s.
The 1930s. Carter G. Woodson, he wrote that book in 1933. I almost want to say that he must have ran across the teachings of Master Fard Muhammad, either during the time or before he met the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Now we're going to go to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And let me say this to give you an idea of what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad represents on a spiritual level. You know, now he was just talking about the Negro. Now back then, nobody wanted to be called black. You didn't call a black man black prior to the 50s, the late 40s and 50s. You know, but the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad came on the scene, and he wrote this book, Message to the Black Man in America. And I mean, that thing resonated throughout the black community based on not what he was saying, but what he was doing. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad was, like I talked about Lazarus last week, or the week before, and there's two Lazarus in the Bible. Okay, Lazarus, the rich man gate, then there's Lazarus that was the brother of Mary Magdalene and Mary, Martha and Mary, and they came to Jesus and they told him, Jesus, our brother Lazarus has died. You know, we wish you had been here, that you could have saved him. And then Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we're going to bring it to the modern times, say he ain't dead, he just sleep. You know, and that's when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and when that's what happens when you begin to study the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you awaken from a psychological, spiritual, and mental death.
That's right.
Into life, where these two eyes fool you. This one, the third eye, opens and you see yourself in Caucasians for what they really are. So we're going to read now from that man that woke up Lazarus, and from the book Message to the Black Man in America. Come on, baby.
Wow. It's so deep because my mind keeps going back to Mr. Woodson. You know,
Yes,
and
yes.
thinking of the people at the time.
At that time.
He's tying right in with Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know, what he's given us, you know.
Time, right in.
Okay, it says, Message to the Black Man in America by Elijah Muhammad, the most powerful black man in America. That was a statement by Reader's Digest.
The most powerful black man in America. Now notice this book was written in 1966. The most powerful black men in America. This is Reader's Digest.
That's right.
They study us. They know who our real leader is.
That's right. Okay, so I'll be reading from page 40 down the bottom paragraph. Okay, it states, I recall in 1922 or 1923 when a debate was taking place in Congress concerning appropriation of funds for Howard University. A school set aside to train my people. Train my people.
Train my people. He acknowledges that. Not educate or teach, but to train.
In the nation's capital. A senator said this, and it is in the records to be examined in effect. What would be the need of the government appropriating money to educate Negroes? That's the question. He said that they would not teach our people the science of modern warfare, which is defense, birth control, or chemistry. He knew these were things free people must know in order to protect, preserve, and advance themselves.
Read those again, please.
He said that they would not teach our people the science of modern warfare, defense, birth control, or chemistry.
Warfare, defense, birth control, and chemistry. Why warfare? Because you got to protect anything that you're going to develop. Please look at the Nation of Islam. This coming from Message to the Black Man.
That's right.
Why birth control? Why birth control? And we're not talking about, please, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is not talking about the death control. He got a whole chapter on that. No, he's talking about controlling just what you give birth to.
That's right.
The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan wrote a whole book, did tapes on how to give birth to gods. Okay, and then the next one was
science.
The sciences. Okay, you need these things.
Chemistry.
And this is what we are being given in our schools. Our little girls are being separated from the boys so that they can think straight and think properly, because it's an automatic attraction between the sexes. Right. And then how to give birth to a God? Well, let's look at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Okay, a man that God gave birth to on another level, and now he has become a God. And while we're talking about it, he is alive and well. Right. Now we're talking about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, who met him, and he now has the mind of a little G, not the big G. Now look at what the devil did. Look at what Satan did during slavery. He understood the science of breeding, of mating. And his respect how to give birth to a slave.
That's right.
Look at the 64 years that they kept away from us, or they developed a so-called American Negro by killing off the ancestors. That's birth control.
That's right.
All right. Now God has come in the person of Master Father Muhammad, and the first thing he gave birth to is the Honorable Elijah Muhammad that gave birth to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and now from those two are coming many men and women. Okay? Many men and women. Psychologically, spiritually, and physically. Yes. They're giving birth physically. Well, that's another story for another time. We're not going into that right now. But I want to tell you and show you what God is doing through the mighty Nation of Islam while we speak. And while I'm at it, I would refer you to go back to Sunday's meeting by Brother Ishmael entitled The Valley of Decision. Student Minister Ishmael. Because that's where we are in this dispensation in time. Regardless of race, creed, or color, you are in the Valley of Decision.
That's right. That's NOI.org.
NOI.org. Sunday's live webcast. The first Sunday of a new February. New month.
That's right. Okay, I'll go and read. We have not been able to protect, preserve, and advance ourselves. This shows the slave master has been very successful in dominating us with an education beneficial to him.
Teach, Elijah. Come on.
That's right. There is a saying among us, mother may have, father may have, but God bless the child who has his own. It is time that we had our own. I want an education for my people that will let them exercise the right of freedom. We are 100 years up from slavery, we are constantly told that we are free.
Uh-huh.
Why can't we take advantage of that freedom? I want an education for my people that will elevate them.
Yes.
Why should we always be lying at the gate, begging for bread, shelter, clothing, and jobs?
Teach the Holy Apostle.
If we are
Teach.
free and educated.
Yes, yes, yes.
Do not get an education just to set it up as some useless symbolic monument to the black man in the Western Hemisphere.
Useless symbolic monument to the black man in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah.
You know, you no disrespect again, but the sororities, Greek, and the fraternities, Greek.
Yeah.
You're not Greek. You know, but they tell you that the Greeks studied the Egyptian mystery system, huh? And stole the legacy of the Egyptians, claiming to be the scholars of our planet. Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, those people educated under us. So why should you accept their concept and idea of you being a Greek?
Yeah.
See, what you show is that you're still asleep, Lazarus.
Yeah,
You need to come and listen to Jesus, you know, and let him wake you from that death that in reality is asleep. Listen to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In fact, the Qs honored the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and I put it on the pit on Facebook next week. Honored him with the robe, the purple robe of their founding fathers. That's a man who's about to wake up from a sleep. That looked as though he's dead, but he ain't dead, he's just asleep. Circumstances and conditions is going to cause all of us to wake up. And if we're lucky, we'll be found following the man that God has left in his absence, and that one is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Yes, he is a criterion.
He is the criterion.
Okay.
Read on, baby.
We need an